You know, the voice that wakes before you do and starts keeping score. The one that comments on everything you are and everything you are not. It talks while you get dressed and while you work. It analyzes your words after a conversation and rewrites the scene until you feel smaller. It does not shout. It needles. It compares. It reminds you of every mistake and predicts new ones with cold certainty. You get a win and the voice says it is not enough. You love someone and the voice says you are too much. You try to rest and the voice says you have not earned it. The world can be quiet and your head still sounds like a courtroom. To be honest, you have done almost everything right. You worked, you cared, you held it together, you tried to be good. Still, the harshest blows do not come from outside. They arrive from the familiar place behind your ribs where no one else can defend you. You feel the body keep the score, the jaw locks, the chest tightens, sleep slips through your fingers. You call it stress and push on. The inner attack continues and you begin to doubt your own reality. You smile in public and collapse in private. You look capable and feel counterfeit. There is a special kind of exhaustion that comes from fighting something you cannot see. You change jobs and the voice follows. You change partners and the voice follows. You collect achievements and the voice changes the rules. You give more than you have and the voice says it is still not enough. You protect yourself and the voice says you are selfish. No move satisfies it. You start to live around it, shrinking decisions to avoid provoking the next verdict. Life becomes careful. Careful turns into small. The voice does not only punish failure, it punishes desire. You feel a spark to try something real, and the voice lists every reason you will fail. You sense anger rise to protect a boundary, and the voice calls you unreasonable. You feel grief, and the voice says you are dramatic. You make yourself manageable to keep the voice quiet. The price is a slow departure from yourself. The body knows the cost before the mind admits it. Headaches that do not fully leave. Evenings that numb instead of restore. A stare into the middle distance that says nothing is wrong and everything is off. You are not weak for having this enemy inside. You learned it. You absorbed it. It sounds like you because it grew inside you while you were trying to survive rooms where love, safety, or truth were uneven. The voice once promised protection. Be perfect and you will not be rejected. Be useful and you will not be left. Be quiet and you will not be punished. Those promises became rules. The rules became a cage. The cage became a personality you do not trust anymore. This might sound harsh, but the hardest battles you fight are not out there. They are the daily moments where you let that voice decide how much of you gets to exist. The enemy lives in your mind and wears your tone. It has memorized your history and weaponizes it against your present. Naming this is not self-pity. Naming this is the start of authority. The moment you see the voice is not you, something inside loosens. Breath returns a little. Space appears where command used to sit. By the end of this video, you will understand why the enemy you keep searching for outside lives inside, why it is not a monster to kill, but a force to meet and retrain, and how the same voice that wounds you can turn into a teacher that protects what matters. Stay with me. I am not going to rush you or sell you quick victories. I am going to sit with you in the place where the war begins and where it can finally end. Positive advice tells you to drown the inner enemy in light. Say kind phrases. Write lists of gratitude. Replace every harsh thought with a gentler one. To be honest, the critic feeds on that approach because it hears your effort as proof that it is right. If the voice were not powerful, you would not need so many spells to silence it. The more you argue with it, the more central it becomes. The mind turns into a debate hall while the body stays contracted. You win a sentence and lose the day. Productivity offers a shinier escape. Hit targets, track habits, control what you can measure. Achievement feels like armor, and for a few hours the voice goes quiet. Then you stop moving and it returns with interest. The critic does not care how much you did. It asks why you did not do more. It moves the goalposts and calls that maturity. You stay busy to avoid the verdict, and the verdict expands to fill the space you will not claim. Self-help gives the cleanest illusion. You collect concepts and learn fluent language for what hurts. Understanding is a relief because it turns chaos into a map. Here is what they do not tell their patients. A map that never touches the terrain becomes another library where the critic works as head librarian. It evaluates how well you understood your wound instead of letting you feel it. It grades your healing like homework. You end up smart about your pain and unchanged in your body. Therapy can also reinforce the enemy when it never leaves the safety of words. You describe childhood, patterns, triggers. You sound thoughtful. The critic loves thoughtful distance because distance is control. Some helpers rush to soothe because your intensity scares them. Most psychologists will not tell you this in a single sentence. Comfort given too soon freezes the very energy that must move for the critic to lose its throne. Relief without contact trains avoidance. Avoidance is the critic's favorite food. The convenience culture quietly widens the critic's reach. Groceries arrive. Work happens from the couch. Entertainment rolls into the next episode without asking. Your nervous system learns to expect ease and begins to classify strain as danger. This might sound harsh, but when every rough edge is removed, the muscles that carry you through life do not develop. The critic steps in to manage the fragility it helped create. It finds you for fatigue and then prescribes more ease. The cycle looks caring and leaves you weaker. Spiritual language can sanctify the inner attack. Forgiveness without anger becomes amnesia. Compassion without boundaries becomes self-deletion. Silence without sensation becomes floating above your own life. Goodness without backbone is self-abandonment. The critic co-opts spiritual ideals and wields them against you. If you were truly evolved, you would not feel this. If you had enough faith, you would not need a boundary. You nod because the sentences sound noble while your body shrinks. Boundaries get mistaken for walls. You withdraw to avoid being hurt and call that growth. The critic relaxes because risk has been removed and then scolds you for loneliness. A real boundary protects connection by naming a limit. A wall protects avoidance by keeping everyone, including you, far away. Running from the critic by building bigger walls grants it a quieter workplace inside your skull. Control disguises itself as virtue. You plan every variable and call it responsibility. You create a life with no room for surprise because surprise once hurt you. The critic thrives in that tight corridor. It audits your day like a hostile accountant. Every deviation equals failure. Every pause equals laziness. Control keeps chaos out and also keeps joy out. Joy is volatile. The critic mistrusts volatility and turns your life into a spreadsheet where nothing uncontrollable can grow. Family training cements the enemy's tone. Be grateful. Do not cry. Be strong. Keep the peace. If love arrived when you were useful, the critic will equate worth with usefulness. If anger drew punishment, the critic will fine you for heat before a sentence leaves your mouth. If need drew shame, the critic will mock you for reaching out even when your chest aches. These loyalties are not defects. They are old survival codes. The cost is that the adult you keeps obeying rules written for a smaller body in a different house. Here is the hidden engine underneath these illusions. Relief trains the brain. You meet the critic and find an exit. Sugar, scrolling, work, wit. A better argument. Relief arrives and stamps the exit as survival. The next time the voice rises, your body reaches for the stomp. The loop tightens. Your range narrows. Avoidance grows skillful and aliveness grows thin. The critic interprets thinness as proof that you are not enough and demands more avoidance to protect you. You live inside a trap that believes it is a plan. The enemy also uses your best qualities against you. It borrows your values and sharpens them into weapons. Responsibility becomes self-erasure. Kindness becomes people-pleasing. Excellence becomes perfection that has no finish line. The voice punishes both failure and success. Fail and it says you are a disappointment. Succeed and it says you will be exposed. Either way, you lose contact with your center and drift toward performance as identity. To be honest, the illusion that confidence will erase doubt keeps many people stuck. Confidence grows from repeated contact with manageable challenge, not from lectures to the mirror. You cannot outtalk a nervous system that has no evidence. You must arrange small wins that end in completion and let the body record the truth. The critic does not retire because you yelled over it. It stands down when your cells know you can carry what you choose. Another illusion says time heals everything. Time without contact does not heal. Time without contact builds scar tissue around what still hurts. You can wait long enough to forget why you are braced and still be braced. The critic thrives in that fog. It names the brace a personality trait and calls it realism. Not everyone is ready to hear this. The programs that keep the critic powerful were praised by people you wanted to please. Obedience felt like belonging. Defiance felt like danger. Updating those programs will feel like betrayal at first. It is not betrayal. It is adulthood. Here is what they do not tell their patients with enough clarity. You cannot punish the critic into silence. You cannot bargain with it and win. You cannot run faster than a voice that lives in your chest. You will need a different relationship with it. You will need to let it speak without letting it rule. You will need to meet the body where the voice takes root so the root can loosen. This might sound harsh, but the critic gets louder the closer you move to something you care about. It calls that alarm wisdom. It is only a misplaced protector trying to keep you from a shame that already happened. Shame is the fuel. Presence is the solvent. When you stay with sensation in honest doses and act in alignment anyway, the critic loses its favorite leverage. But there is something even scarier than the critic's voice, and we will get to that. If the voice I described feels uncomfortably familiar and you are tired of obeying it, if these words resonate, subscribe to the channel. More people need to hear the truth they're being denied. To be honest, the enemy in your head did not arrive from nowhere. It was built from 1,000 small moments where safety depended on obedience, excellence, or invisibility. Freud would say the mind learned to push away what felt unbearable and to move toward quick relief. What gets pushed away returns through side doors. It returns as a sudden flood of shame when you make a harmless mistake. It returns as tight politeness that cracks into rage after you held it together too long. It returns as perfection that never finishes and usefulness that never earns enough love. The pleasure principle promises relief. The reality principle adds time and consequence. Relief that keeps you small is not relief. It is a loan with quiet interest. Jung offered a map that makes us feel less mysterious. The shadow is every part of you that was exiled to keep belonging. Anger that could have guarded a boundary. Need that could have invited closeness. Power that could have set a direction. Tenderness that could have let you be held. You did not delete these forces, you stored them. The critic stands at the door of that storage room with a clipboard. It finds you whenever any exile force tries to return. It calls the attempt dangerous. It calls your desire reckless. It calls your grief dramatic. It keeps the system stable by keeping you divided. Under the surface, the exiled material organizes into living knots. Depth psychology calls them complexes. Think of a complex as a loop where memory, sensation, and meaning are fused. A perfection loop forms around the terror of rejection. A caretaking loop forms around the belief that love is earned by service. A control loop forms around the vow that softness equals collapse. When a loop gets touched, it takes over the inner room. Your breath shortens, your jaw locks, your choices narrow. Insight alone cannot unseat it because you do not pick a loop with logic. A loop picks you through the body. Here is what they do not tell their patients with enough clarity. The inner critic is not a villain by design. It is a frightened protector that learned to prevent humiliation by attacking first. It borrows the voices of parents, teachers, partners, and culture. It sounds like authority because it once kept you safe. The cost is that it now punishes both failure and success. Fail, and it says you proved its point. Succeed, and it says you will be exposed. Either way, you end the day smaller. You do not defeat a protector by declaring war on it. You teach it a new job by giving the body new experiences of safety while you do what matters. Most psychologists will not tell you this in a single sentence. The critic lives in posture and breath before it lives in words. A collapsed chest says, "Do not take up space." A clenched jaw says, "Swallow the sentence." A frozen diaphragm says, "Do not feel too much." When you change the body state while the voice speaks, the message begins to lose grip. Shoulders back a little, breath that reaches low, eyes that orient to the room you're actually in, not the room where you learned the rule. The nervous system updates with experience, not with speeches. A small, proud posture held through a hard moment rewrites more than a page of affirmations. Archetypes explain why the critic feels absolute. When the orphan leads, safety is everything and risk looks like death. When the warrior retires, courage has no seat. When the lover goes numb, connection becomes performance. When the caregiver rules without the sovereign, you save everyone and abandon yourself. Integration means inviting these figures back into balance. The orphan asks for steadiness. The warrior brings spine. The lover keeps your heart open. The caregiver adds mercy. The sovereign says, "What changes now that you know?" The critic hates this meeting because a balanced inner house does not need its tyranny. Family programs set the operating system. Do not cry. Be grateful, stay productive, keep the peace. If closeness once depended on usefulness, the critic will measure your worth in tasks. If anger drew punishment, the critic will fine you the moment heat rises in your chest. If vulnerability drew mockery, the critic will mock you from the inside to prevent humiliation from the outside. These were survival codes for a smaller life. Your body knows they do not fit your current size. That friction is not failure. It is a signal that an update is due. This might sound harsh, but self-sabotage is not self-hatred. It is misapplied protection. The critic blocks the call, not because you are unworthy, but because success would expose you to the same old shame. It ruins intimacy, not because you do not want love, but because real closeness would reveal needs you promised never to have again. It delays the creative work, not because you lack talent, but because finishing would invite judgment. The paradox is brutal and freeing. The enemy is trying to save you from a past that already happened. Presence is how you teach it that the past is over. Mechanically, the way out is simple and not easy. Externalize the voice so you can speak to it instead of from it. Write its sentences in quotation marks and answer from your adult self. Use pendulation when the sting hits. Feel the heat in the chest for a few breaths, then feel your feet on the floor. Back and forth until the charge drops a little. Offer micro acts of defiance that your body can survive. Send the message. Ask for the extension. Say the smaller no that protects connection. Complete a meaningful effort that raises your pulse and ends. The body records completion as truth and the critic loses leverage. Here is what they do not tell their patients in glossy programs. You do not kill the critic. You make it redundant. You keep it in the room as a consultant rather than a ruler. Its raw material becomes discernment instead of contempt, standards instead of perfectionism, foresight instead of doom. That shift happens when you let the body finish waves that were interrupted years ago, and when you keep moving toward what matters in doses you can carry. Not everyone is ready to hear this. The critic has been your identity for so long that softness feels like fraud. Authority without attack feels like laziness. Rest without collapse feels suspicious. Stay anyway. The nervous system needs repetition to trust new rules. Hold a proud inch in your posture while you speak one true sentence. Keep your breath low while you make a choice that the voice forbids. Let shame rise and fall without obeying its orders. Inch by inch, the throne weakens. And here comes the most painful truth. The hidden enemy is not an intruder you can eject. It is a part of you waiting to be reassigned, and until you turn toward it with presence and spine, it will keep ruling the life you meant to live. This is where the mask comes off. The enemy in your head is not a demon that slipped in while you were sleeping. It is a protector that learned the wrong job. It attacks first so shame cannot attack later. It tightens your chest so you keep your head down. It lowers your eyes so no one sees how much you want. It believes humiliation is worse than hunger, so it starves you of risks that could feed your life. To be honest, it has been loyal. Its loyalty has been costly. You can hear that loyalty in the way it punishes both failure and success. Fail, and it declares you unworthy. Succeed, and it warns that exposure is coming. Either way, you stay small. The pattern is brutal and logical. If you never step forward, you never risk the shame that already happened long ago. The critic runs that math all day. It calls fear wisdom and calls numbness peace. Your body carries the bill. Tight jaw, shallow breath, a spine that folds in rooms where you need it most. Here is what they do not tell their patients in clear language. Every time you obey the critic, a small part of you learns that your truth is negotiable. You leave yourself at the very place you needed a hand on your shoulder. The abandonment is quiet and cumulative. One swallowed sentence, one boundary delayed, one goodbye avoided. The house of self loses weight a gram at a time until you hardly feel at home in your own life. The enemy does not need to shout when you are already leaving before the verdict is read. This might sound harsh, but the voice will not disappear. It is stitched into reflex, posture, breath. It lives in muscles that brace before you stand to speak. It lives in the throat that tightens when you want to say no. War makes it stronger because war is still a relationship with it. You win the argument at noon and it returns by evening. What ends the tyranny is not extermination. What ends it is reassignment. You stop asking it to be a judge and ask it to be a sentry. A sentry alerts without deciding your fate. A judge punishes. The job must change. Most psychologists will not tell you this in one breath. Integration is not theory. Integration is an experience repeated until your cells believe you. The critic fires and you remain in your body. Shoulders back a little, breath that reaches low, eyes that take in the actual room instead of the room from your past. You speak one true sentence and stay present through the heat that rises. The wave peaks and falls, and you are still here. The voice learns that its alarm did not require evacuation. That is how authority returns to your hands. The enemy softens when you let it be seen as a part rather than a god. You can name it without hate. You can even thank it for the seasons it kept you alive. Then you give it a smaller chair. Its power becomes discernment instead of contempt. It can notice a careless draft in your work without calling you a fraud. It can sense a risky room without ordering you to disappear. It can forecast a consequence without predicting your collapse. The same engine that once attacked becomes a compass that points to what matters. Pain sits at the center of this turn. The critic rises loudest at the doorway to desire, love, creation, and rest. Those are the places past shame burned you. When you step toward them now, the alarm sounds. The old you obeyed and left the doorway. The new you listens, thanks the alarm, and steps through in a dose you can carry. That dose matters. Heroics flood the system and prove the critic right. Manageable steps teach the body that exposure is survivable and that dignity returns after contact. Dignity is the reward that finally competes with avoidance. You will feel grief here because you will see how many years the judge sat on the throne. You will see the birthdays you missed while performing perfection. You will see the intimacy you edited to remain acceptable. You will see the art you kept in drafts to avoid the gasp that comes when you release something that matters. Grief is not a detour. Grief is the tax you pay to end the arrangement. Let it move through. It clears space for a kind of authority that does not require tact. There is also anger shaped like a guardian. When you stop abandoning yourself, anger arrives not as a tantrum, but as a clean refusal. No to the schedule that erases you. No to the joke that costs your dignity. No to the love that demands you disappear to earn it. The critic will call this selfish. Your breath will tell you it is sane. The nervous system relaxes when boundaries protect connection. Your body recognizes the difference between a wall and a line that lets you stay. Not everyone is ready to hear this. The critic's voice has been praised by bosses, partners, and families who benefited from your self-control. Changing the contract will threaten old balances. You will upset people who preferred you obedient, tireless, or silent. That discomfort is not a sign you are wrong. It is a sign that reality is updating to include you. Inclusion feels dangerous when exclusion was the price of belonging. Hold your ground one honest inch at a time. And here comes the most painful truth. The hidden enemy will rule as long as you ask it to keep you safe from feelings you are unwilling to feel. The moment you consent to feel waves and doses you can survive, its throne begins to crack. You step toward what matters while the alarm sounds and you remain. You become the one who decides. The voice does not vanish, it learns a new job. Your life stops being a courtroom and starts being a house where you are allowed to live. Let us make this practical. The voice in your head speaks in words, but it lives first in posture and breath. To be honest, you change the relationship with the critic by pairing small doses of contact with small acts that end in completion. Safety first, intensity second. Begin by taking the voice out of your skull and putting it on paper. Externalize it. Write the exact sentences in quotation marks as if you were transcribing a strict coach. Give that part a name so you can speak to it rather than from it. Then answer in your adult voice, steady and simple, I hear you. You learn to keep me safe by attacking first. You can alert me and I will decide. Most psychologists will not tell you this in such blunt terms. Externalization already breaks fusion. You become the listener, not the captive. Add a part's dialogue once a day for a few minutes. Speak out loud in a calm room. Let the protector say its worst line, then respond as a kind authority. I am not abandoning you, and I am not obeying you. You can sit beside me, not on my throne. The nervous system needs to hear a human voice. Your voice setting the order. Shift the body while the voice talks. Shoulders back a little, jaw unclenched. Breath that drops low into the belly. Let your eyes orient to the room you are actually in. Place one hand on the sternum until the breath meets your palm. The critic lives in collapse. A proud inch of posture is an argument it cannot win. Hold that inch through a single hard sentence, and your cells record a new ending. Use pendulation when the sting hits. Feel the hot spot in your chest for a few breaths, then place attention on your feet pressing the floor or the weight of your hands. Back to the chest, back to the anchor, like a tide. You are teaching your body range instead of trap. Range is resilience. Use titration so you do not flood. Take the feeling in sips. Allow heat, shame, or grief for a handful of breaths. Then name out loud a few ordinary details you can see. A window frame, a cup, a crease in the curtain. Repeat until the charge lowers. The goal is not catharsis. The goal is capacity. Create micro acts of dignified defiance. Choose one small action the critic forbids and your body can survive. Send the message. Ask for the extension. Publish the imperfect draft to a safe audience. Say a smaller no that protects connection. Complete something that raises your pulse and ends. Completion is the medicine. Here is what they do not tell their patients. The critic stands down when your cells collect proof that exposure is survivable. Run a weekly shadow ritual to starve the critic of its best fuel. Pick one trait you exile to stay acceptable. Anger, need, ambition, pleasure, sensitivity. Write one cost of banishing it and one gift it brings when owned. Say out loud that this trait has a seat at your table now, with responsibility. When the critic attacks, name the motive. It is trying to keep an old exile in place. You are choosing a wider home. Install truth lines for relationships so the critic cannot weaponize shame against intimacy. Speak from inside your skin. Here is what happened in my body when that occurred. Here is the story my mind made. Here is what I need to remain open. These sentences protect connection without self-erasure. They also reveal who can meet you. If someone punishes your truth again and again, your body will tell you. Believe it. Build an evidence bank for hard days. After each small act of contact, write one line in a pocket notebook or notes app. I stayed 1 minute with the heat and it passed. I said a clear no and I remained. I finished the work while the voice doubted me. This is not a journal of achievements. It is a ledger of dignity. On fragile mornings, you read a few lines to remind the body what it already knows. Train a repair practice for when you obey the critic. No drama, no self-attack. Say one sentence, I left myself there and I am returning now. Then do one micro act that proves the return. A breath with an open chest, a call you avoided, a boundary spoken in one clear line. Repair builds trust faster than perfection ever did. Give anger and grief a channel that does not harm. Press both palms into a wall and let your legs push while you exhale with sound. Twist a towel until the jaw softens. Beat a pillow with open hands for the length of a chorus while saying what never got said. Sit with a song that opens the chest and let tears move in waves. This is not drama. This is completion. The charge that could not move then is allowed to move now. Reshape your environment so the critic loses quick exits and easy megaphones. Put the phone in another room during your sit. Place a sticky note where you work that says sentry, not judge. Lay a journal and pen where the remote used to live. Most psychologists will not tell you this with enough emphasis. You do not need more willpower. You need fewer exits and more friction where it helps. Close each day with 2 spoken sentences. One truth your body learned today, one boundary or effort you will choose tomorrow. The spoken word signals your limbic system that someone steady is here. You become the adult you needed. The past begins to relax. To be honest, you are not trying to kill a voice. You are retraining a protector. You are moving its job from courtroom judge to perimeter guard. It alerts, you assess, your sovereign decides. Not everyone is ready to hear this, and that is all right. We are building a community of people who choose presence over performance, contact over escape, dignity over obedience to an old script. Begin where the fear is mild. Hold a proud inch while you speak one true line. Stay 1 minute longer with the wave. Do one act that ends in completion. Write one line in your evidence bank. Repeat tomorrow. Inch by inch, the throne cracks and authority returns to your hands. You stayed long enough to see the enemy become a part of you that can be guided. You did not wage war. You took the throne back and gave the judge a smaller chair. To be honest, this is what real strength looks like. Not a spotless mind, a present one. Not silence from the voice, authority over it. You can feel the difference in your breath and in the inch of posture you now hold without effort. You are learning to live without abandoning yourself. The path will not be tidy. Old orders will bark. Old exits will glow. You will practice what we have practiced. A proud inch while you speak one true line. A breath that reaches low when shame spikes. A boundary that protects connection instead of punishing it. A small act that ends in completion while the voice predicts collapse. This is how dignity compounds. This is how the hidden enemy is turned into an ally that warns but does not rule. Not everyone is ready to hear this, and that is all right. We are building a space where anger, grief, need, and ambition are signals, not sins. A space where presence is worth more than performance. A space where your life stops being a courtroom and becomes a house you're allowed to live in. If you saw yourself in these words, write in the comments, "I no longer run from pain." Let's see how many are ready for the truth. If you feel it's time to meet your shadow, write, "My darkness is my strength." Let's build a community of those unafraid to look within. If you're ready to drop the mask, write, "I take off the mask." Let's see who's ready for real life. If this video changed something in you, write, "I accept my shadow." Make it your vow to yourself. This is only the beginning.